G'day, I'm Andy Dolphin. Welcome to my studio.
Today I'm in the Great Southern Wheatbelt near Kojonup in Western Australia. My subject for this painting is this white gum growing just off the side of the road. The challenge here is to break down the intricacy of all the leaves and branches into the most important shapes to make a painting. It's summer here and the acid greens of winter have given way to beautiful warm tones, and it's that dryness and warmth that I want to capture in this painting. So I've gone with a limited palette using only cerulean blue, mainly for the sky, French ultramarine, titanium white, permanent crimson, yellow ochre and burnt sienna. I've also put a little ultramarine and white on the side that I'll use as the painting progresses to mix cool greys as I need them. Before I begin painting, I knock out a quick thumbnail sketch just to get a bit of a feeling for the main shapes. I'll usually start a painting in one of two ways, either a basic line drawing or by laying in large tonal masses. For this one, I go with the line drawing due to the complexity of the tree structure. Now I'm not going to go into a great deal of detail in this video. Hopefully the process speaks for itself. But there is something I want to talk about. One thing I've noticed when looking at comments on other people's tutorials and even on my own is a tendency from people to sometimes want to know every last detail about exactly which pigments the artist is using, what brand of paint they prefer, what kinds and sizes of brushes and so on and so on. And really, if you get stuck on that sort of detail, you're probably setting yourself up to fail, if only because half the time you probably can't get those brands of brushes and paints where you live. In reality, a lot of this sort of information is largely irrelevant unless you're wanting to make an exact copy of a painting. In my opinion, what really matters when watching any sort of tutorial or demonstration, whether on video or even from a book or magazine, is that you understand the general principles. Things like painting dark to light and thin to thick, particularly when painting with oils or acrylics, and working from the big masses down to the smallest details. You also need to grasp the concept of tonal masses. Where is the darkest dark and the lightest light? And how can you manipulate the tones to produce a piece of art rather than an exact copy of a photograph or even of a plein air scene? Then you need to understand color temperature, warm versus cool, and how to manipulate that color temperature to deliver a pleasing result. If you understand those principles, you can apply them using all manner of media, from oil paints to pastels and even to paper collage. You can use the most expensive brushes with bristles made from unicorn hair, carefully hand-tied with chupacabra whiskers, and they're probably available somewhere on the internet. Or you can use the cheapest hog bristle brushes, like I'm using in this painting. Sure, the paint texture may vary, your finished result may vary from what you're following, but you'll still get good results if you can get the fundamentals down. And really, the best way to get decent results is to paint, and paint a lot. And draw too, because if you can draw fairly accurately, it makes painting so much easier. With regards to colour, I would suggest sometimes just trying a limited palette. In fact, if I can suggest an experiment to you, when you watch a landscape tutorial video such as this one or one by anybody else, try to ignore the suggested colour palette and go with something a little different. If you're going to follow along, do it with a limited palette of just 3 colours plus white. You may have heard of the Zorn palette, named after Andreas Zorn, who's purported to have used little more than black, ochre and vermilion to complete many of his works. Now this might not be so desirable with a still life full of bright flowers and objects, or even a sunlit flower garden. But for a typical landscape or seascape, a limited palette can deliver quite pleasing results. So if you want to experiment a little, choose one red, perhaps a crimson of some sort, one blue, like either ultramarine or cobalt, and one yellow, maybe a cadmium yellow, lemon, or even a yellow ochre. You could even try substituting something like burnt sienna for the red and see how that turns out. Just choose your 3 basic colours, a blue, a red and a yellow, and then try to follow the tutorial using those colours. Of course, you'll also need some white on your palette for your mixes. As noted earlier, in this painting I'm using 2 blues with just 1 red and yellow ochre. I don't have any primary yellow on the palette. This means all my warm colours will have to be mixed using yellow ochre and crimson as the modifiers. This not only makes it quicker to choose a colour to mix with, since there's almost no choice to make, but also helps to deliver a colour harmony throughout the painting. Of course, I also have burnt sienna on this palette, which allows me to easily mix some very dark darks and to add a little variety into other mixes. It would be interesting to do this same painting using only the burnt sienna instead of the crimson. So, to summarise all that, as this painting comes to an end, if you get the tones right and you get the shapes right, then you're pretty well on your way to getting a decent painting. I mean, if you think about it, black and white photography can work, sepia tone photography can work. Colour really is just the icing on the cake at the end. It's not what makes a painting work or not work. Just get the foundations right and you're off to a good start, and let the colour take care of itself. And with that, I'm going to bring this painting to an end, and thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.